Hey there, Ben.
Greetings. My name is Ben, aka Downsizeit, and I am very pleased to be joined today by Summer Tao. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. Is it Tao?
That is
Awesome.
correct. That is correct.
And she is an article writer for Goonhammer, if I'm not mistaken. And over the past several months, has been putting out some really excellent articles about Star Wars Armada and tactics, fleet building, etc. And I'm really excited to have the opportunity to interview her today and some of the work that she's done, etc. So, Summer, thanks for coming on the channel.
You're very welcome. It's such a pleasure to be here, Ben. I feel so welcome and so buttered up.
Well, just to get us started, why don't you give us a brief background about your job or role at Goonhammer? What is it that you do for them?
So Goonhammer is a tabletop games publication. We write mostly on tabletop games with some branches into other forms of gaming as well. And our main focus is long form written, in-depth content. We don't do clickbait. We don't do short attention span stuff. We even try to avoid commentary and short hot takes. As far as possible, we try to write in-depth strategy, competitive coverage, meta coverage, and long-form reporting. And I'm just started with Goonhammer in the role of a writer. I write articles. I pitch articles. Editors give it a pass, and then I ship it on and publish it. I'm currently pretty much single-handedly heading Goonhammer Star Wars Armada coverage because Armada is my favorite game ever. Favorite tabletop game ever.
And well, I like to hear that.
It is phenomenal. It is such a phenomenal game. And I know we've got a few other writers interested in writing for Armada. I can't wait to have them join me as well. But my Armada coverage mostly comes in the form of writing about strategy, writing about the larger scale stuff, list building stuff for Armada. As soon as new releases start coming in, I will start covering new releases. Fingers crossed.
Yes, much fingers crossed on that one.
Oh yeah. So yeah, right now these days I write things like faction overviews, ship overviews, basic strategy, that kind of thing. Mostly aimed toward a new player to mid-grade competitive, not tournament setting. I've never played in a tournament and I don't have the skills to play in a tournament, so I don't claim any expertise in that direction.
Well, hopefully that's something you might be able to change in the future. I'm not sure what your Armada scene is like there where you live, but
there isn't much of one, unfortunately. Yeah.
That stinks. That does make it tough.
It's like that.
Well, and just for people that also might not be aware, they might be more familiar with Goonhammer because they focus largely on 40K, correct? I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yeah. We started off as a 40K oriented website. It's in the name, the hammer part is meant to signify Warhammer. And then we just gradually branched out. In the last year, we have taken on many new writers for many different kinds of games. We're really diversifying the portfolio a bit, which is great.
It is always good to diversify, I was really excited to see your first article. I think it was it last fall, or I guess it would be spring for you guys.
Yeah, it was.
And that just shocked me. I was like, wait, I thought Goonhammer was a 40K website, and it was really exciting to see Armada getting coverage on their basically that magazine service or article service. I'm not sure what you'd call yourselves.
Yeah. Goonhammer is the third largest tabletop media website by traffic. We're trying to eke out some of the larger ones, but we are the third largest by traffic, so I'm really proud to be able to bring Armada to as wide an audience as possible. And just between you and me, I really just want to poach a few 40K players for us, Maybe people want to play a game with a more streamlined rule set.
I 100% agree. Keep up the good work on that front. Well, as far as gaming in general, what got you into gaming in the first place? Have you always been a gamer? Is it something that's just been recent in your life?
Pretty much always. Pretty much from my childhood. Lots and lots of games from my childhood. Grew up with, a family computer in the house, the one in the living room, that era.
Same here.
I'm probably aging. Yeah, I'm aging myself a little bit here, but our first internet connection was a 56K connection. So not as old as some of the people I'm with, but we did have a 56K in the house hooked up. And there was the family computer in the living room.
Yep.
And one thing led to another. I always tried to play games whenever I could see them. I was a very indoorsy kid. I've always been a very indoorsy, stick around at home kind of person. So video games turned into an interest in tabletop games in like the third or fourth grade. In like grade 3 or 4, I learned that Warhammer 40,000 existed, and it was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life, but it was also completely out of my reach at the time. Coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. Been a lifelong 40k fan since the third and fourth grade. My first start in 40k was Dawn of War. I played Dawn of War when I was like 10 years old. Don't tell anyone that my parents let me get up to that. But I was
We'll
playing
keep the
Dawn of
secret
War at age
between.
10.
I love
Yeah.
Dawn of War though.
What a magnificent series.
Yeah.
Rather a pity about how the third game turned out, but what a magnificent series.
Yeah,
So many
that
great
was a shame.
memories
I was so
wrapped
looking
up
forward
in
to it.
It was a little painful to see. Yeah, then so video
Now,
games and an interest in stuff like, yes, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna follow up on the 40k part, just because I also
Sure.
enjoy 40k for the lore, etc. What's your favorite faction? I'm Adeptus Sororitas myself. I like my Sisters of Battle.
My favorite faction of my heart is the Imperial Guard, and they're still the Imperial Guard to me. I don't entirely subscribe to the Astra Militarum. The faction
Nice.
of my heart will always be the Imperial Guard. I mostly play Space Marines because the models are a lot easier to access and there's a lot of great conversion potential. For most of my life, for most of my 40k playing life, the Imperial Guard was still using those 20-year-old sculpts, the really chunky Cadian guardsmen,
Oh
and
yeah.
the tail end of the catechins. So I'm a model maker at heart. So I always try to chase new and high quality sculpts, and Space Marines give that. In fact, my 40k display shelf is up there at the back, so you can only
Oh, I
see like the
love
top
it.
3 out of 4 shelves. Yeah, it's
Are those
so I've
some
got
knights
3
I
on.
see there on the middle shelf?
Yes, they are. I've got 5 Cerastus pattern knights, 5. So I've got Imperial Guard, Imperial Knights, and Space Marines in that order on the shelf.
You said the Cerastus ones, so those are the Forge World models, right?
Correct. Massive conversion jobs on each of them. They were big centerpiece projects, all of them. I'm really proud of them.
Well, considering how much Forge World models weigh, I'm surprised that shelf is holding up to the strain. Because they're not made out of they're not made out of plastic. They're pretty heavy.
They're not. They're dense. They're quite dense, but the
Yeah.
shelf is holding up well, and that's my baby. So, yeah.
Man, I love that. Well, so beyond 40k, then, what put your radar on Armada? Like, how soon did that happen? Was that recent, or is that kind of like near the beginning in the early 20 teens?
Closer to the beginning, I was also a lifelong Star Wars fan growing up. I only watched snippets of the movies as I grew up, but I thought they were the coolest thing in the world. Very into science fiction as a kid. Always kept tabs on Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, and then the natural crossover point between wargaming and an interest in Star Wars is things like X-Wing. At the time, only X-Wing and Armada existed as the flagship tabletop games for Star Wars. So I got interested in Star Wars tabletop gaming right as Imperial Assault was winding down, and right as X-Wing was at its height and Armada was rolling around. I spent a lot of time trying to decide whether I liked X-Wing or Armada more. I ended up favoring Armada because I was already a 40k player, and Armada has a slower pace. Armada's got a much more slow and strategic pace that I favor over X-Wing First Edition's very quick, very fast, fly by the seat of your pants pace. And I got into Armada in 2015. Got my core sets and stuff down in 2015, few expansions. We all start so small. It all starts so innocently. Wow, I got a core set. Wow, there's a Star Destroyer, and then bam, I'm out of space in my house again.
Yep, exactly.
It's like that. So yeah, I've been collecting Armada since 2015, playing Armada on and off since 2015, 2016.
Very nice. And as when it comes to Armada, do you have a preferred faction or commander that you go to? Obviously, Grand Admiral Thrawn is my guy that I go to all the time.
Thrawn is a phenomenal character in the lore. I absolutely love the original novels about him. He's so magnificent,
Same
and
here.
I'm glad they didn't dustbin him during this canon switch over. So he's back. He's back.
100%. And I'm so looking forward to his live action debut in
Same.
Remembered in Ahsoka. Oh, so excited for that.
I want that so badly. Faction-wise, in Armada, I typically play Galactic Empire and then Republic as well. I'm very fond of angry space triangles, as it were. And, for most of Armada's lifetime, the Clone Wars factions were a thing, so I mostly tried to play Galactic Empire. I leaned Galactic Empire. I have a nearly full and complete Armada collection, but my preferred factions are Empire and Republic.
Gotcha. And do you have a specific commander you like, or do you like to switch them around whenever you put your fleets
I switch
together?
around a lot. Yeah, I switch around a lot, and I think I have a leaning towards and a preference towards ship commanders. Squadron gameplay didn't really click until the last year or two for me. So yeah. Strong.
And that's pretty much normal, I think. Squads are, when it comes to like overall strategy and stuff in Armada, squads are the last, I think, to be able to master. And but once you can, even just minor squads, it can really change your gameplay, I believe.
It really does. A lot of the time I still just bring the Colonel Jindon, Marek Steel, Moronaki blob, the Imperial Death blob as like an add-on to the real fleet. But I've been trying to get more into squadron gameplay because it's a whole part of the game that I'm often missing out on.
And I know I've already sort of asked you this, but you mentioned you don't get to play that much. But when you do get to play, how often is that? Do you usually do TTS if you have to, or try to just force somebody, hey, let me show you how to play, just to get a game in and try to teach somebody to try to grow it?
I'm still in university, so I'm doing a PhD, and I'm in my university's gaming societies. It's our nerd club. It's a wonderful place. I love them to bits. And whenever I can, I try to scrounge up interested parties from there. This year, we've got a couple of really keen players, and I just do the thing where I'm sure you know this from any game sorts and things. I'm the resident Star Wars Armada nut. I have just about everything for the game that exists. If you're interested in playing, I'll set up the game. I'll make the list to show up on the day, and that's most of my games. Most of my games aren't that variety. We don't have really a competitive scene or many other players who are deep into the game. So I play pickup games over here. And I recently started branching out into Vassal Armada because I want to get a more challenging experience, and Vassal Armada gives me that over distance.
Yeah, that even though there's nothing replaces playing actually in person with the models, the nice thing about Vassal or TTS is that, like you said, it allows you to expand your people that you can compete against and play against that you might never meet.
Yeah.
I've been able to play against people, who live in Europe and stuff that I would never meet in my life, but that allowed that opportunity. It's great.
I'm very fond of getting my ass kicked by people around the world, honestly.
That happens to me all. I didn't realize how bad I really was until I started playing people around the world.
Same.
And it's also interesting how you mentioned how you're kind of like the person that sets up games and kind of gets things going. I feel like I'm that person for Northwest Arkansas. Although that's kind of changing. It's nice to see it's been growing the past couple years, and I'm hoping maybe that might be the same thing for you in your area. You might be able to start growing, etc.
Yeah. More and more publishers, more and more suppliers in South Africa have started picking up on Armada. I found that quite interesting. That I always thought that I had a feeling that COVID might put a hammer in Armada and make things really difficult for us. But throughout the pandemic and then afterward, our suppliers here really started stocking Armada more and more heavily, which I'm really happy about. Actually, from most places I can hear, Armada is actually slowly picking up in the last couple of years, which I'm just sure, happy day.
Yeah, and hopefully, from what AMG mentioned during Adepticon and Worlds, that might mean that it might continue to grow. We might be able to pull this stagnation we've had might start going up again.
I really hope so. I can't wait for rapid reinforcements too. And at this point, it's just even just a print and play expansion that I need to do at home and cut out with my scissors is something that gets me so riled up. I just want Armada to carry on. Anything, please.
Same here. Well, now transitioning from actual playing Armada to writing articles about it for Goonhammer, what was the inspiration behind that? How did that come about?
I've been a Goonhammer reader for a long time, and Goonhammer was one of my main preferred sources of tabletop info, updates, strategy, and stuff for 40k. And I noticed they've also branched out into a lot of other games, non Games Workshop properties. And then one day, I always say this, I was getting into that state that tabletop gamers get into, which is I have a massive backlog of stuff that I haven't finished painting and assembling, which means it's time to explore new war games and try to find a new game. So I was on Goonhammer looking at all of the getting started articles that they have for all the game systems, bolt action, X-Wing, that kind of thing. And I realized Star Wars Armada was completely absent. So I emailed Goonhammer and I asked them, would you be interested in someone covering Star Wars Armada with like a getting started article or a, stuff for new players article? They took me up and it's just been rolling ever since. Like they took me up and whatever I'm doing is good enough for them to keep me around, which is fantastic.
That is fantastic. Did you have to write like an essay or like a test article for them? Like how does that even happen?
They initially asked for writing samples, and I didn't have any really decent writing samples. So I told them, you know what, I already gave you my idea, so how about I just write a draft out and send it to you? You read it and tell me if it's what you would cover. So I wrote the draft for, it was What is Star Wars Armada, followed by Getting Started with Star Wars Armada. I wrote the 2 drafts for those, sent them in, they approved, and so they onboarded me, they took me on board, got me organized, and started publishing.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. And that's actually really cool that they would give you that opportunity. Just like, hey, well, send us an article. And
I'm extremely thankful, yeah.
And I know it might be hard to think of, because you've put out so many, but what have you put out so far? I think it was, a few months ago when you put out the first article, and you just recently published one about like high level strategy and tactics, which I thought was really cool, using the real life examples of how real life militaries conduct their orders of battle. Like, how many have you put out so far?
Quite a few. I think I'm at a dozen or more articles for Goonhammer, and these are all long form pieces. I think the shortest one might be 2,000 words, and I usually overwrite rather than underwrite. So I tend to go from 2,000 words up. It started with very basic, getting started with Armada stuff. Then I did faction focus. I broke up the faction focus articles with ship articles, like overviews of these are this faction's small or medium ships. Here's what they act like. Here's how you might want to fly them. I intersperse those between faction focus, which is just in one article, this is this faction, this is how they play, this is why you might want to play them, here's where to start. Then after I got those very basic groundwork articles out, I started digging a little deeper into strategy, fleet building. I'm a bit of an armchair general. I spend a lot of time making lists and fleet building and seeing how the pieces connect. Then when I take the list onto the table, I get my ass kicked. Mike Tyson once said that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
So, that's right. And that's even just part of an even older military adage, no plan survives contact with the enemy.
A classic,
yeah.
And that is an absolute classic.
And it's one of those where it just comes down to getting your conceptualization, and then it just comes to just getting the hours in, getting the games in. And
absolutely.
Because I was the same way, especially when Armada was dead in my area for several years. I got started in Armada, played for about 6 months, and then there was nobody to play, and so I didn't play for a couple years, but I still kept up with it. And I would watch, the other content creators with their battle reports and be like, why don't you do this, that, and the other? And then first time I would get on the table after a couple years, I'm like, okay, all right, I need to, I shouldn't be judging too much.
It's like, what does Navigate Token do again? I forget. Oh.
Right, yes. And, I'm flying off the board. Oh, this is embarrassing.
I just flew into an asteroid. I just overlapped an asteroid, and it wasn't to my advantage. Oh, dear.
Right. Yeah. And I suppose I probably should take back that comment I made about that other guy I watched play the other day or something. I don't know.
Yeah. We're so great. We were all phenomenal players when we were watching someone else play. And, we're such great critics.
That is so true. And it's interesting how closely, when it comes to watching other people play games and being armchair critics, translates so well to just sports and sports fans.
Yeah, always.
It's the same thing.
Feels that way, doesn't it? My goodness.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to the articles, do you have like a scheduled plan for future article releases? Do you have like a cadence you like to do? Do you have certain
I
topics you're already
do.
thinking about? This is one I want to write now.
Yeah, Goonhammer works very freely because our team is mostly passionate war gamers doing this as a passion project. So we tend to be very high energy people who really want to do this. And everybody works their own way. Some people are total chaos. They get an idea and they bang it out in 2 days, and then it goes into the publication queue. I'm one of the people who tends to plan things out about a month ahead of time. These days I publish between 1 and 2 times per Armada per month. I started at 3, I wound it down to about 2, and then 1 to 2 because Goonhammer made me realize that there's actually money to be made in freelance writing. So after I got into Goonhammer, I started freelance writing. So I do have quite a packed schedule now.
Very nice.
So, yeah.
Well, that's really cool how this has expanded to actually, help you professionally.
Yeah, it's helped me a lot. It's fantastic because, times are rough right now economically. So I'm taking whatever I can get. I'm on a full-ride scholarship for my PhD, but the amount of that full-ride scholarship doesn't pay as much as it would have been worth like 2 years ago.
Right.
And the scholarships figures were set out 2 years ago for a time before Russia invaded Ukraine.
Man, that changed so many things.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Ruined a lot of things for us. And so having a side income, fantastic. Having a way to pad out my CV and my resume, fantastic. Being able to do what I love, writing, fantastic. I normally publish 1 to 2 times a week for Armada, and I usually have my next article idea hashed out a month or 2 in advance. So there is a queue.
Very nice. Well, do we have I don't know how you feel about spoilers or previews, but do you have a preview of what your next article might be for Armada? Or is that something we just need to wait for and just stay tuned?
It's partly stay tuned, but there's one piece that I've been wanting to crack out for quite some time, and I've been practicing and playing games to crack it out, and that's a basic squadron command article. So the basics of making your squadrons fly, not the list building side, the tactical side. I've been really, really wanting to do that one. It's in the pipes, and every month that rolls around, I push it back one further month because I don't feel like I'm ready to write it. So that's definitely in the pipes. I'm not going to leave the squadron players in the dirt. And speaking of not leaving anyone behind, people will notice that the separatists have been conspicuously absent from a lot of my stuff. Like there's no faction-focused separatists, that kind of thing. That's because I don't have separatist stuff, and I've never played seps before, so I don't feel qualified to speak about it. But it's happening. It'll happen.
Getting started. Very
Yep.
good.
It'll happen. Yeah, it's in the pipes.
Well, I think I also, just from the short time we've been talking, how you've been describing how you go about things, I really respect that about you, that you don't want to write an article about tactics or list building unless you actually have the hands-on knowledge to talk about it. That way you're not just purely theory crafting, you actually have done it and actually know how it actually feels on the table.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a pragmatist at heart, and I'm also a strong believer in not talking out of your ass as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's also kind of a Goonhammer ethos. We try to maintain a high standard of writing and a fairly high standard of almost journalistic ethics, where we don't just go off the cuff and promote things because someone told us to promote it or someone's just sent us a free review copy and we're just going to promote it willy-nilly. We're one of the few publications who's known for occasionally giving mediocre to bad reviews, but generally what we mean is we give honest reviews even when we get stuff for free. It doesn't always make us the most popular for getting more free stuff, but we care about integrity more than we care about getting the free stuff, which I think is important. And that's why there's been such a delay in separatist stuff. I don't have all of the stuff on hand yet. I'm trying to get hands-on experience with it. And once I do, I'll be able to speak from a position of relative authority rather than essentially condensing and rewriting what other people have said about the separatists. I want to have some experience.
Right. Yeah. Because if you don't do it that way, then you, like you said, you're just rehashing what you've read elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I really like what you said about Goonhammer, where you guys give honest reviews, you don't sugarcoat things. It really frustrates me sometimes when I read other articles or listen to other people who've gotten like a free copy of something to review, and they pretty much are apologists for whatever game company it is that they got the free stuff from, as opposed to giving honest
Yeah,
critique.
it's I have to recognize that when you get free stuff, it inherently changes your opinion of it, right? I think that's completely unavoidable. Free stuff slash review copies inherently alters your opinion of the product and its supplier, but you can still do your best to mitigate that and try to give as balanced an overview as possible. And that means recognizing critique where there is critique, you know?
Yes. Yeah. So, as far as writing for Armada, are there any other articles that you write for Goonhammer? Are you specifically Armada only, or have you tried to write any 40K articles since you're such a huge 40K fan?
Uh, as of this year, from this year onward, I do intend to branch a bit more into 40K because, I do have a keen interest in 40K. It's certainly where most of my time and money has gone into. The fact that Armada ships don't need painting notwithstanding. So this year I am branching more into 40K, into the hobby model making and painting side of things rather than the competitive gameplay side of things.
Gotcha.
We don't have much of a 40K scene either, right? But I'm more of an artist. I'm in the artistry side of wargaming mostly. So I love doing hobby stuff, conversions. If you see my eyes going over there, it's because I have my hobby desk over there. And as I talk about this, I can see my projects over there. So I recently helped do an event we'd Goonhammer ran for the 40K boarding patrol stuff. 40K recently released a boarding patrol rule set for small scale infantry combat, and we ran a little painting challenge. So I did an article series about converting up a space marine boarding patrol, painting it, developing your themes and ideas, how to overcome mental blocks in painting, that kind of thing. I'm a hobbyist at heart.
I think that's really cool because I am not, and I always show such an appreciation and just a sense of awe for people like you that can paint and do kit bashes and just make these models look fantastic. Uh, which is why I don't have a ton of, which is one reason why I like Armada. They're pre-painted, so that's helpful for me. But that's why I only have one army of 40K, because I have to pay other people to paint my models for me because I just can't do it. I don't have the patience. So I just have such an appreciation for the hobby side of things.
Thank you so much. It's a wonderful thing. The hobby side of things is wonderful, but I think we also need to recognize that the skill set and kind of enjoyment and mindset that goes into playing is very different to painting, which in itself is different to assembling. So I've never taken issue with anybody who doesn't feel like they're as good as at one area and are better at the other areas, because they're honestly tagging into such different mindsets and kinds of experiences. I'm not here to take away from anyone's fun. If you're having fun, you're doing great.
100% agree, and that's such a good outlook on life. It's so much better to have that kind of view towards other people and their enjoyments, as opposed to judging them based on one thing or another.
Yeah, I try not to do that. Like, I repaint my Armada ships quite often, but I also know that part of the main draw of Armada is that you unbox the thing and you have a game-ready piece and everything is set. That's a wonderful feeling with Armada.
Yes.
40K, you unbox the thing and now you've got gray plastic,
And they're all sprues, so you have to cut and trim and get glue all over your hands. Ugh, I remember I tried when I very first tried putting together. I was like, all right, nope, this is not for me. Went to a friend. Can you put this together for me and paint it? Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody has their different interests. It's wonderful seeing where everybody stands, So yeah.
Well, Summer, this has been really fantastic. It's been really cool learning more about your history with Goonhammer and just gaming in general. And before we sign off, I just want to know if there's any other topics that you wanted to discuss, about your life or gaming in general or the work you do, kind of like an open forum.
Open forum, my goodness. The only thing that comes to my mind is the welling excitement in seeing that AMG is finding successes as they as they roll their way out of a pandemic and what must have been a very challenging transfer from FFG to AMG, they are finding successes in their games. And I'm just sitting here hoping that those successes will filter down to us Armada players eventually. Because Shatterpoint's becoming quite a big thing, and the Shatterpoint hype train is growing quite rapidly. Goonhammer's definitely going to cover it. I won't be getting any of that coverage really because it's not quite my area. Let me let you in on a secret. The reason I'm not going to hit our Shatterpoint coverage is because then I'd have to paint the models, and I suck at painting skin.
Yeah,
but I really hope, yeah.
I saw it at the Adepticon, the preview, and I was like, "Are they painted?" No. It's like,
damn it. I absolutely understand and empathize with the interest in seeing the success of Legion, seeing the success of Legion, and realizing that unpainted models draw both players and hobbyists as customers in. I understand the successes, but I can't paint skin. I'm so bad at it. And
especially if you have a backlog of 40k stuff, the last thing you need is a backlog of Shatterpoint models.
Yeah, exactly. Like 40k 10th edition is about to hit us in the next couple of months, so my painting backlog needs to be withheld and stabilized first. But then beyond that, I'm just hoping that the ramping up of now I know AMG didn't explicitly say they were working on major developments for Armada, and whatever they are, obviously it's buried and they're not going to release it until when it suits them. But I just really, really hope that this game continues, because if the rising interest that I've seen in Armada is anything to go by, there is a player base and Armada is managing to grow through a content drought, which is the exact opposite pattern of what you'd expect from most games in a content drought. So there's nothing I can do but thank all the players and all the dedicated content creators, such as yourself, who keep their dream and keep Armada alive, and keep us playing and keep new players interested. Just brings joy to my heart,
Likewise, and thank you for that. And it's right back at you, because you're also a content creator putting out articles at a reputable, gaming magazine that is widely known worldwide. And it's like you said, Armada is growing despite the lack of content, and that's because of the community. And
I know we have a wonderful community, we truly do.
And I think AMG saw that at Worlds because of just the insane turnout that they had for people wanting to come and play Armada in the Last Chance qualifier and the sub games, and just the extraordinarily high coverage quality that Ion Radio did for Worlds.
They were magnificent,
It was, for the first time, they looked like a professional broadcast booth, and I think
they were.
I think that caught AMG's eye, so hopefully that translates.
I really do too. And just behind the scenes, Goonhammer is trying to make inroads toward getting in touch with AMG to increase our coverage of AMG's games. I'm, of course, as usual, still spearheading our Armada section. We're trying to cover a bit of everything as time rolls on, so we'll see how it goes. We'll see what we can cover, we'll see what we can put out. And I just hope people stay tuned and keep reading and, keep their hopes high.
Well, as far as your articles are concerned, of course, people can find them on Goonhammer. But what are some other ways that they can find your articles? Like, other than, I know the Facebook Armada page, you usually post there when an article is live. Is there anywhere else people can find links to these articles when they come out?
Everything gets published on Goonhammer mainly, so the easiest way to honestly track me down is just to have an RSS feed tick off Goonhammer. And then my author page on Goonhammer will just have everything I'm writing, and they'll have Armada in it. Goonhammer also has a little tab section, other games, Star Wars Armada. Everything Armada we've ever done is right there. Since I only publish Armada stuff on Goonhammer, that's where you'll find me. I maintain a personal Instagram as well. It's just painting, hobby, and live stuff as well. But that's not like the foremost point for Armada writing. It's mostly hobby stuff. So yeah.
Right.
Goons.
Awesome. Well, guys, go check out Goonhammer. Check out Summer's articles. They're really good. And, I personally, I love the long form articles. Like, as you mentioned, I don't like the clickbait, just quick little blurbs. I love it how it's long form, it's thought out. The most recent one I really enjoyed because I love high level strategy and tactics talk.
Yeah.
And yeah, so go check that out. Check out Summer's articles and just keep an eye out in the Star Wars Armada Facebook page where she'll post updates there as well.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Ben, for having me. You've been an absolute delight, and it's such an honor to be part of this, always.
Well, thank you, Summer, again for coming on. It was a pleasure for me as well. And for everybody watching, thank you for watching. And don't forget about the giveaway to subscribe and leave a comment in this video and just what you think about Summer's articles, etc., like that, and just give her a shout out. So thank you guys for watching. And until next time, take it easy.
Bye.